Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Akim. In this video, we're going to be looking at the 5 rules under the SMART studying techniques. So, according to the philosophy of rule learning and structure building, it is known that people who learn by extracting underlying principles in different experiences learn better than those who really take experiences by face value. So, hopefully by the end of this video, you might have gotten yourself a very good way of applying the different study techniques, which are SMART, of course, in your own way. So, lastly, I've got some timestamps linked in the description below, so if you just want to skip to any part of the video you might feel like, feel free to do so. So the first one I want to talk about here is the 80-20 rule. So basically the 80-20 rule means that 20% of the content gives 80% of the marks, which is absolutely very true in every part of life. For example, you don't need to know everything about life in order to just get the best out of life. You just need to know the fundamentals of life. You don't need to know everything about economics to be very rich. No, you just need to know the fundamentals of business. So even what the good studying techniques do, or the smart studying techniques, is that they highlight the 20% that always really gives the 80% of the marks. Whenever you're reading a book, or whenever you're in class, or whenever you're just reading a textbook, it's very crucial for you to have some questions on the side. Actually, when you're in school or when you're learning things like this, makes the process easier because there are already questions that are preset for you to see what is needed the most, instead of really just spending a lot of time on the fluff. So most of the studying techniques, and that is, for example, active recall, like testing yourself again and again, really helps you to highlight the 20% that you need, that will give you 100%, okay, not 100%, that will give you 80% of the marks. So the second rule I want to talk about is that value makes the whole lot of difference in academic results. So when I was still at school, I used to hear people saying that, okay, if I had more time, I would have performed better than that guy. If I had been taken back in the class below, I would have performed better than those guys who were there. But then, in reality, we don't have to really think in that way, in my opinion, because we can't really get any more time in life. Like, for real, we can't get more time. But what we can do is that we can just engrave more value in the time we have for learning. So most of the studying techniques, what they do is that they don't really promise more time, but they just try to put more value in any single moment that you are learning. So it doesn't matter if you're studying for the whole night or you're studying for the whole day. What matters is how much value are you putting into the time you're using to study. And that really brings us to our next rule. Disciplined effort gives multiple reward. So the point of really providing value, in any given point of life, for example, you're providing more value in business, or you're providing more value as you're studying, it all comes down to disciplining the effort you're putting in at any one moment. So you might be having the good studying techniques, active recall, space repetition, interleaving your practice, varying up your practice. You have all these good studying techniques, but actually they're not disciplined. It doesn't matter if you're using active recall or space repetition, but if you're not consistent, if you're not maybe self-controlled, if you're not truthful to yourself with what you know and what you don't know, 90% you're gonna end up using the right things but using them in a wrong way. So basically, this is how I think about most of the things that are really falling in education and stuff. I think of education and academic results in 3 ways. One is that you have to put in the time. You have to really just sit down and listen into the classes, put in the time. And the other one is putting in the effort. You have to really learn how to take notes, you have to learn how to listen, you have to really learn a lot of skills. And the other one is putting in the money. Of course, you have to pay some money, of course, to buy some energy to go and maybe crack the exam. You have to really just pay some money, buy some books, and all that sort of vibe. The thing comes in here when you're putting in the effort. So the effort, if it's not disciplined, if it will not give the value that we need. Remember, we say that having value, it will make the overall difference. So if your effort is not disciplined, what will happen? 90% of the time, you will not give the value that is needed, and hence you will just take a lot of time but implementing value that is not really needed. Make sure you're consistent, with whatever you're doing. If you're applying space repetition, you have to create a timetable, and you say, okay, I'm applying space repetition this day and this day and this day. I'm organizing my things, my books are always here. So that way of disciplining the different good study tips, it really makes them really very powerful beyond belief. So the next rule I want to talk about here is that memorization is the key to ultimate learning. So I know a lot of people might have a problem with this rule, and a lot of controversy, but hear me out here. In my opinion, you can't be creative in anything. Like, for real, you can't be creative if you don't know, or if you're naive beyond comprehension. Like, you can't. and you can't think about something which you don't know. In my opinion, thinking is not only just looking at something and then trying to comprehend. No, in my opinion, it's just staying with something for a long period of time and then trying to beat your mind on it and then on it and on it and on it for a long period of time. So most of the people, of course, they are always told, and there are a lot of quotes out there which are saying, okay, education is not all about memorizing. But in my opinion, whenever you look at the different good study tips, let's be honest here. Firstly, maybe let's say active recall, spaced repetition, all these study techniques, 90% of the time they're targeting memorization. I just wanted to look I just want us to look at this very critically. For example, active recall. When you test yourself about something, what does it do? It helps to really just bring out that one part of whatever you learned and make it raised over the other cues of memory of remembering the same thing. And so what does that do? That helps you to recall because it strengthens the cues of that specific thing. And okay, let's look at spaced repetition. So spaced repetition, what does it do? It allows you to forget what you have learned, and then deliberately after a given period of time you have to remember it. So when you're remembering what you've forgotten, that really also alleviates and lifts the part of the memory or the cues that you use to memorize its thing, and hence strengthening the memory. So I think memorizing really is a very good key in learning almost everything. You can't really learn anything or apply anything you really don't know. So in my opinion, you have to really, these study tips, they have to be memory threatening, in my opinion. When you look at the study tips that are not really very efficient, for example, rereading your notes, highlighting your notes, most of these study tips, in my opinion, they are not memory threatening. And what I mean by not memory threatening, I mean that they're not kind of like trying to really stretch your memory to a different point. And by virtue of doing that, not trying to stretch your memory, you just get familiar with whatever it is you're learning. Like, you just get familiarity with the notes, with the things you're reading and the highlights, but then you don't really commit these things to memory. And so in my opinion, you have to really fight and see that these study tips you're using at any one point, they're helping to alleviate your memory. So the last rule I want to talk about here is that errors are an integral part of learning. So there is this myth I used to see at school, and it's called the myth of errorless learning. So most of the time people think that whenever they get something wrong in an exam, they have failed, and actually it's nailed by the teachers by just giving a cross in anything that you do. You make an error too. And in my opinion, this is not very good, in my opinion. And the reason for that is that, when someone really makes an error, what happens is that their brain is raised to a higher frequency, and that frequency is waiting for any answer to be offered. And whenever the answer is offered, what happens is that you tend to think of it, more. And actually, that's why most of the time you see, okay, when you're presented to an answer, it really makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, you just kind of like can see and respond instantly. So what am I trying to bring out here is that, whenever you're just trying to learn or you're using any study tip or these smart study tips, make sure that you just try to, cope up with the errors. Of course, when I was also starting to do different things, I completely suck at them. I make a lot of errors. But then, in my opinion, making errors is not at all failure. When you make errors, that shows that you're just trying. And actually, there is a very nice philosophy, or can I call it a quote, that was said by Thomas Edison, and it really excites the hell out of me. And Thomas Edison was like, I haven't failed, but I've just found the 1,000 ways that don't work. So that really shows the degree of committedness that Thomas Edison was at, towards trying new things. Okay, so looking at an overview of what we have looked at is the 80-20 rule. You must be able to look at what are the 20 things that are giving me 80% of the things that I want, and the other one is that value. It makes the whole lot difference. It doesn't matter about what time you spend reading, or it doesn't matter about how long you just spend in class, how long you spend your time in a library. No, what matters is that the value attached to that time. So how do we apply the value is that disciplining our effort is the key to getting multiple reward. So disciplining our effort is one, being self-controlled, avoiding from procrastination, being truthful to ourselves, like, okay, I don't know this thing, I should try it out. And then the other thing is that memorization is the key to succeeding in learning. memorization. So you have to really memorize something in order to really get above it, or get above memorization and start applying that and get some good cognitive conceptual understanding of whatever is it that you're learning. And the last one we talked about is that errors are an integral part of learning. We must cope up with errors. We must, okay, the thing with making errors, is, some people are like, okay, you learn by exploration and then by theory. Of course, there is not that everything you have to learn by exploration and then by theory, because okay, if you're learning how to fly from a parachute and you have to learn by exploration, then of course you can't do that. Okay, maybe, but I don't know. It's very difficult to just learn and move on with your life and don't not moving with it to the grave. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. But as always, until next time.